Season 3, Episode 28. On-ramp, good, but it's got me in a foul mood. So I'm going to let Chris jump in first so that I can come back to a normal state.
Normal state. That's the question. What is the normal state? I want to mention can I mention first just the interesting phenomenon? I really like this platform. I love this platform, but it's interesting to me. It seems like the transfer from Convo to YouTube has slowed down since we first started using it. And I don't know if anyone from StreamYard is listening. I know you're not, but if anyone knows, if any people are using StreamYard free version, would love to hear your experience with this. Like if you've noticed any sort of lag, because it's consistently, I would say it has progressively kind of gotten slower. Now, again, this is a free tool, so I'm not going to complain either way. It's just something curious. It would be a really smart algorithmic ploy, though, that as the longer you use the free version, if it did lag you just in small pieces, just so that you would start to consider to pay for the full version. Now that would be that'd be creepy ass if they actually doing that in the background. Like that would be really creepy if they're doing that. But it wouldn't. I mean, I've seen too many other little tricks of the trade like this, where you need either parts are missing from the free version, or you hit the paywall just as the salient point is being presented in the content. So yeah. Anyways, this would be an interesting motivational technique to get someone to buy into the full StreamYard if the algorithm was set up in that way that it kind of notices, oh, you've been posting for a while and you haven't bought into the full version. Because I think my memory is correct on this. You might be able to tell me. Like it used to be that I could get up from the conversation, take a snap of whatever I've scribbled. You know, I kind of walk upstairs, grab a coffee, and by the time I had my next coffee, the post was in YouTube and I could kind of just do the distribution thing. I think one time recently it didn't pop up until Sunday. So curious. Yeah, that's why just tech, glitch, clank, all that kind of stuff that we've messed with so far. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I have to say a couple of things. I think that the first one is that our podcast has gotten longer over the past little bit. Like it's gone. I want to say it feels like it's significantly, our time has increased online.
Yeah.
But I don't have any true data. I'm just kind of telling you my feeling. And then the other thing is that once we're done podcasting and I go into the back area of StreamYard, it has our link right away to YouTube. Like it has the home of where this stream is going. So, I mean, today when we're done, I could send you the link and you can go click on it and see if it's there. I don't know what the difference is between, like before, like you said, you'd take a shot of something, we'd talk for a few minutes after, and then it would appear on our site. Whereas now, it like takes a whole day before it appears on the site. But last week when I texted you the link, it hadn't appeared on our site yet, but I had access to a link where our podcast, that episode was living. So I don't know about that. I also, as I listen to you talk, I'm thinking about how residential internet is like gone haywire now because everybody's at home all day long, every day. And the negative side of me is thinking that, like I'm with Rogers, so I'm sure they are just salivating, right? They are just so excited that, hey, everybody's on now. It's slowing them down. They're going to be calling us, wanting us to find a solution to speed them up. Well, that solution is going to equal this. I'm making the money sign here. They're going to say, hey, we can boost you for another $30 a month. We'll have you on the pandemic full blast plan where you'll get high speed, higher than high speed ever because of the pandemic and everybody's home. Like they'll come up with some nonsense to try to sell people. And I have to tell you, that upsets me. I pay a lot of money for my internet. I'm sorry, I'm not home all day usually to use it, but now I am. And, even like my wife and I belong to a Facebook group of our neighborhood. And it's been like 3 days in a row. People are posting, hey, is anybody else feeling like our internet's really slow? And we're with such and such company. And people are responding like, yeah, we've noticed it too. Like there's a visible notice of the high speed not being high speed anymore. And there's some common like answers to that. One of them is everybody's on at the same time. That still puts stress on the system, no matter how good the internet is. And just residential internet was not built to be dealing with what it's dealing with. It's not, it's just not. So we're learning a lot of things about this is what happens when you're at home all day, every day, and you're encouraged to stay home, right? Like, as you know, I've been out 2 days in a row to go do whatever, and it's been exciting. It's been great to get in my car and drive my car again. And that's the other thing too. Like a couple of weeks ago, I had a buddy post on social media that he had a plan, and he laid out his plan. He's like, I'm calling my insurance company, and I was told by a friend that if I called and I told them that this one car is not being used, I want you to take off all my insurance except the whatever insurance I need to keep, the most minimum insurance on this car, so that if something happens to it while it's sitting in the garage, we're covered, but I'm not driving it. And he laid out this whole plan, and I remember laughing, thinking, one or two people do this, it turns into hundreds of people, and the next thing you know, the insurance company writes some kind of writer statement somewhere that they can just throw at you and say, no, we're not doing this anymore, and this is why. And they come up with a reason to keep collecting your money from you, even though you're not using their service. Like that whole circle, that whole system is broken because of, corporations that just need the money to do what they need to do to make their world run. So my buddy, I say to him, tell me how this goes. He responds, he's like, I'm paying now like $22 a month or something for my wife's car. And I'm not allowed to drive it. And he told me all the things. And then his friends were populating his social media feed by saying, I'm calling now too. I'm calling now too. And when that thing becomes viral and everybody starts doing it because they have 2 or 3 cars and they don't need to use one of them, why are they paying, $1,500 a year if they don't have to? You wait and see. Somebody there figures it out. Oh God, we're losing money. Nobody wants to insure their vehicles anymore. We need to do something to stop this now. Just like the internet. I'm sure if this thing continues, I'm sure we're going to hear from the internet companies about a new deal that you can have. Obviously, it's going to cost you more. And they're going to pretend to give you a product that works better. Like it's all that stuff. It's all that stuff that just gets under my skin. It's like, let people have a break for a minute here. Like even gas is down. The cost of oil is down. And somebody's going to have to fix that because you can't have that. And it's like, if they weren't greedy in the first place, I don't believe these issues would exist as bad as they do. If you weren't as greedy, if insurance wasn't so expensive, people might be like, oh, it's all good. I can afford to keep paying this because it's not that bad. Maybe that's all relative. I don't know. I'm just saying that, like, I haven't filled up. I can't remember the last time I filled up my gas tank. And the last time I was out with people, I was at school March 13th. And then after that, I've not had to go to work or go to anybody's house or go anywhere and do anything. And I've not filled up my tank. I've not gone to the gas station since before March 13th. And I still have gas in my car. So does my wife. That's incredible. Dude, that's unprecedented. I was spending like $60 a week getting gas. And I haven't had to spend that money at all. Now, when you take that and you boil it down, I don't want anybody at the gas stations to lose their jobs or anything like that. But I do believe that the oil companies are making they've always made a killing. They've always had surplus money. Maybe it's time they use a little bit of that surplus and keep their companies going. And it's very easy for me to say this about a corporation because there's no real person that I'm talking to or looking at. But these corporations, just in my opinion, have been so greedy. Like the cable companies, the internet companies, the big ones, just so greedy. Always looking to grab more money from you. The last time I'm with Rogers, the last time I talked to them, they said, we got this really awesome opportunity for you. And I'm like, well, tell me about it. So they tell me about it. And then at the end of it, it's like, okay, so this is like for the rest of my life. They're like, no, it's for 9 months. I'm like, what happens after 9 months? They're like, everything goes back to what you're paying now. I'm like, then why would I want to do that? They're like, because you get 9 months of discounted and you get this and you get this, you get this. I said, no, I don't want it. They said, why? I said, do you want the real answer? Or you just want me to hang up? And they didn't say anything. I said, I'll give you the real answer. The real answer is you're going to give me all this stuff. I'm going to get into the routine of having it all and enjoying it and my family using it to the point where we can't let it go. Then it's okay for you to just keep taking my money again. Silence. I'm like, I'm not a genius, but I do have an undergrad in psych. So I do understand like some human behavior and I know exactly what you're doing. I don't want it. But your stuff's outdated. I don't care. And then they just sit there. It's like, well, what are you going to tell someone who doesn't care? I don't care. It's outdated. It's still working. And that was it. And then Bell, I haven't been with Bell in years. We're still getting emails and stuff. They want us to come back. It's been years. We don't want to go back. It's like, this is what they're spending their money on. This great massive money that they have. They just keep blowing it out like that. Right? So I don't care if they're losing money. I don't care.
It's good. I'll jump in.
Please do.
It's so the going just tracking all the way back, see if I can tread through everything you threw down. So my I agree. Could be bandwidth capacity, could be processing capacity, could be what I'm noticing I should not have dumped in the lap of StreamYard. Little apologies to StreamYard, because there are, as you've said, other factors, and factors that I hadn't included in my noticing. Like, I'm not looking when I see that it doesn't appear. When I see that it doesn't appear, on YouTube, that's an end user, an end moment kind of a thing. So somehow I'm completely losing track of all the little steps in between that our video that we've made has kind of like pinged through the whole time. I get that. I also get that we've also now jumped to, on average, hour and a quarter, hour and a half worth of content. We're not dropping it at 45 to 60 minutes anymore. So it's a bigger file that's going through there. Again, still the freemium version or the free version that we're using. But I've also never looked to see what are the analytics for Rogers. I'm on Rogers as well, like to check to see how healthy is the internet right now? Like, is it really, how burdened is it? How quickly is it moving? I've never really looked at the traffic there. So there are absolutely other factors, and I will take that into consideration moving forward. As you pointed out, though, I guess I'm not really. I've thought about asking about a faster service for the house. We actually haven't had. what was interesting is it was only maybe on the first or second day there was a moment where I was getting some really crazy lag on a staff meeting that we had. So I went downstairs and I asked my kids to kind of shift their schedule so they weren't using bandwidth. So my kids right now are um, they're on a schedule where we kind of blocked out schoolwork, but we also have reading. Like we have other things in there besides school. So we just asked them to shift to one of their own other blocks. One kid I put on creative, another one I put on like a movement or whatever. So I got them off of their using their devices, and that helped it a little bit. Um, but it got in my head like, well, this is where I'm going into the cost savings here. So like you, I haven't spent. I still have. I think I'm now down to an eighth of a tank. I think I filled up just a day or two before we left. So Karen texted me the other day. She had to go into work. She was helping hand out technology. And on the way back, she's like, oh, you may want to gas up. Prices are going to go up tonight. And, I kind of glibly said, what, from 70 to 72 cents a liter? Like, and the prices right now are low. Uh, but I think about the money that I've saved. My car that I drive it's less efficient on gas. So on average, I'm probably spending the way that I rate it is probably around 65, maybe $70 every, because where the pricing was at beforehand. The pricing now is different, obviously, but I was spending, let's say, about $65 every 5 days. So it wasn't even making it through a full 7 days. I would have had to have gas up again. So for me, thinking about like that's expensive for gas. Like I'm spending, sorry, that's a high expense for gas. I don't have a choice, but I have to pay it. So now I'm thinking, okay, I haven't spent any of that money. I could just put that towards better internet. So I'm gonna sort of reallocate funds. Had similar conversations around, we're spending more on groceries, but the more in groceries is not the more that we were spending before with groceries and going out for dinner. So if we were going out for dinner once a week or bringing takeout in, we haven't increased our grocery consumption to the point where that's a real difference maker. So we're still kind of saving some money there. So I'm like, okay, what can we use that money for? So it's an interesting mindset when you start to accrue savings in a space and try and decide, should you just keep them as savings or should you actually activate and do them for something? I will say where we are, it's costing us a little bit more is that both of my kids were in different lunch programs at school. So they had a long-standing kind of like a pizza day that would kind of come up on rotation. And then just in January or maybe in December, the school got a good deal from a local restaurant to do like healthy Italian meals. So once a week for sure they had pizza day. And then it was like every 2 or 3 weeks they would have this hot lunch from this Italian place. So I know this is sunk cost. You kind of forget that you spent it, but to be honest, I think the pizza day costs $4 a kid. Like it's really a great deal. And if you think of what making a kid making a lunch each day costs, I think $4 is probably a little bit cheaper than like even making a home lunch for a kid. So now we're starting to feel, and that's all they would only bring a piece of fruit or whatever with that. But now that we no longer have that, we're starting to realize how much our kids eat because they actually are. What we feel like we're saving, we're spending somewhere else. And finally, that whole idea where you mentioned like the obligation to upgrade, I think this past week has reminded me about how much actually is kind of working right now. Like I don't need the other internet. I just have to kind of organize my day better. As in having conversations with me and my kids saying, hey, can you get off? I can shift this around. The convenience factor that you mentioned is pretty powerful stuff. And you don't have to dig too far into bait and switch or our capacity to want something better or the sort of looks like a good deal right now, pay later kind of mentality. I wonder how many people have actually bought into deals already. Because here's the crazy thing: anything that's a deal rate, anything that was a deal 2 weeks ago, there's a different deal now. But the deal 2 weeks ago would have been framed like this is the best deal for what's happening right now, which is probably the truth. It probably was the best thing. But now that we're, let's say, 3 weeks into, how many weeks are we in now? 4 weeks, 5 weeks into home? Like we'll just, if we just call it the being at home too much era, is it 4 weeks or 5 weeks?
For me, it started March 14th. 13th was the last day of school, and the next day was a Saturday. It's been over a month.
Yeah, so we probably in our 4th or 5th week, somewhere around there. You go week to week in the offerings that different companies are offering. It probably is the best deal, but just like any little bit of buyer's regret, if you're telling yourself that by paying right now it is the best deal, and that you basically, in some ways, you just have to sort of inoculate yourself and say, I'm not going to look to see what's offered 2 weeks from now. Because Rogers and Bell every once in a while, kind of, I get something from them. And I haven't been with them 15 years, easily 15 years, I think. I was with Bell first when we first moved to York Region from Toronto. And then we shifted everything slowly over to Rogers. But yeah, I know for sure, like whatever I buy into right now in the sort of upgrading for what corporate believes are my needs, unless I'm prepared to kind of look at it like you have and say it's good enough, I'm fine, I don't care about your next product, then all that money that we're kind of saving from gas and maybe on take out food and like it's just, it can get soaked up so fast. But I'm kind of cool with my as is lifestyle right now.
That's good. I'm good with it. I mean, I got one of my kids complaining the internet's way slower than it used to be, and I'm like, dude, we're all on it all the time. So things are shifting. But what are you gonna do?
Nothing.
No, nothing. I mean, unless you want to spend your money. I don't want to spend any money on that stuff. Mm-hmm. I'm what excites me? Grocery day. Because and that's the other thing too, like there's been a lot of eating going on in this house.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Like my kids are literally like, what time's dinner at today? And we're like the same time every day. And they're like, but we want food now. And it's like, okay, get food now. Like they're constantly eating. But anyway, you and I were part of a really cool thing this week. We started our book study.
Mm-hmm.
Or is that book club? Book club. And I want to just say that it was really cool getting to meet the guys in the club this week. And I'm looking forward to meeting with them again. And I really appreciate that you came into both of the sessions to say hello. I think I know I appreciated that, having a familiar face in the room. It's nice. And you and I have this, we've built this back and forth banter where we know that we're good in this space. And so it was nice for you to jump in here and there. And it was good. So if people listen to the podcast, they know they've heard about my experiences with school and the English classes I took in school, and maybe my dislike or my disinterest in fictional texts. And since then, I've moved in a direction where, like 2 nights in a row now, I will lay in bed with my fiction book and read it. And I have to say, I'm enjoying the story. Like I'm invested in the story. So that's all, and that's a big thing for me. That has to happen for me to continue something. Is I need to feel invested. I need to feel interested. Anyway, so I'm looking forward to how the book club with the guys in the room evolves, and I'm already liking, like that we talked a little bit about the text but we also talked about other things that interest us and who we are and what we're about. Would you agree with my perspective? I'd like to hear yours.
Yeah, I'm the it's one of the interesting things, one of the sort of like just almost like obsessively interesting things for me about this the club in itself is how easily you can fall into like your teacher head when you have this idea that you want to have a book club. The tools are so readily available, the thinking, the framework, the questions, the approach, the basically the pedagogy of it. I'm just mind blown at how quickly it grabs you and does not let go. And I think that's the exact force of nature that I'm trying to be resistant to. And it's not that I don't, it's not necessarily that I think that um, teacher tools are bad, but even teacher tools can create blind spots, and they can actually um, keep things from happening. They can um, keep people from participating. Like there's some things about pedagogy that you got to make sure you're working really, really hard to balance the openness of opportunity with the progress of the actual project. And you know, if there has to be a very clear end to this, which is the book, and is going to happen at some point. You can't read a book without finishing it. You know, you're gonna we're gonna end up at that end at some point. The tools that we use to kind of walk through that space, I'm really trying to resist the what feels like the natural, what feels like a very natural kind of lockdown thinking of I have to go from 1 to 210 or 211. Like the progression of moving through the book for me, I'm trying to create as much lateral space to move through it. And the more lateral space that I feel like I can create for myself in looking at this book is a way to remind myself that there's more to reading a book than just starting on the first page and ending at the last page. And that's a constant, almost like a meditation for me, that no matter how we move through as a group, um, and no matter how I move through as an individual reading this book, my experience of the book and having it kind of soak into my daily life means that I can't just do it prologue to epilogue. Like I have to take time to go sideways and research something. I got to have a conversation. Um, and like you, I've never, um, I mean, I tried doing a small book club back in October. It became really slow in a lot of ways because there were tons of divergences. And I don't think we landed anywhere at the end, but we had a lot of great conversation along the way. But I was kind of always aware of no matter the questions I had coming into the actual meeting, which is kind of like your own personal pursuit, like you're bringing your agenda and your checklist. I tried to stay as open as possible to the opportunities that popped up in the meeting because that stuff was like the gold. That was like that was the beautiful little confusing bits along the way. And I think when I lay that experience against what a classroom version of a book club looks like I don't think that happens as often as we aspire to in education. And there's one obvious thought trap within this process is that there's a lot of teachers in the room doing this book club. And the smaller inquiry might be like, is it even possible to do a book club with teachers and not turn it into a classroom? Like I'm a little scared of that. I'm actually a little worried of that happening.
I appreciated that you laid out that position earlier on, and I appreciate it. And as I've been reading the book, I've been doing everything I can to not think about what I'm reading as a teacher. I'm
It's
just
tough. It's
I'm
tough.
just reading about it as, you know what I've done actually? I've and I did this pretty quick. Like, this came because you and I had this conversation before today about the whole teacher lens. I'm reading the book, and I'm imagining that I'm standing there by the main character, that I'm actually just there. Like, so at the beginning of the book, there's the stories about one of the main characters as a child doing his thing, playing and working and stuff, and I'm putting myself there with him so that I'm not standing there as like Mr. Chidiak looking down at a student. I'm like, oh, you're 13 right now. I'm 13 right now. And then it's really cool because it's taking me back to when I was 13 and what I thought about when I was 13 and how I would have felt at some of the things happening to him when I was 13. And I'm finding that, and I know I'm still early in the process, but I'm finding that awareness and that perspective is really helping me get out of the whole teacher thing. I'm actually, as a 13-year-old boy, I'm starting to become anxious about what's going to happen to my friend, this main character, because I know enough about what the text is about. I know what's going to happen to him or have an idea, and I'm worried for him because I'm not looking at this as a teacher or as an adult. I'm trying to put the 13-year-old lens in so I can see it as a 13-year-old. And but this is where I'm finding joy in reading a text that I never thought I would find any joy in. In fact, when my wife asked me about the book, I was telling her about it and she was like, "This sounds really good. Like, can I read it when you're done?" And I'm thinking, "Of course you can." And that is a conversation my wife and I have never had before. She's asking me if she can read the book I'm reading when I'm done. That's never happened. So I've taken what you've said to heart, and one of my missions is to read this text. And I hope when we get together with the book club to address it in a way that brings me back to being the same age as the character in the book, because I find that that's very powerful. And I'm not going to say anything right now about the content of the book, but there have been a couple of things, a couple of nuggets in the first 3 chapters that we're reading before our next meeting. I don't know if people are picking out the same things I'm picking out that I want to talk about. They probably aren't, right? Like, there's things are happening in the book that I think, oh my God, that what happened there on that page, that's something that could wreck a kid for life. Like, that's something in my life, that is something that I would have held on to into adulthood, because it's just an experience that is so powerful in terms of like feeling shame or being embarrassed at such a level that you're like, shoot, that's going to stick with me for life, unconsciously, consciously, however you want to deal with it. So and then I wonder, is this why people read fiction? Because they get this really good feeling about being immersed in a story where they actually, like, the way I'm operating with this book, is that what people do with fiction books? I don't know. The only reason I'm doing it is because you made a really good point about, hey, teachers in the room, can we do this without your teacher hat on? Because you said that to me, now I'm trying to read the book with my teacher hat off, and I'm being intentional about putting on my teenager hat and trying to go back to what it was like when I was a teenager, and then try to put myself in his shoes, in the character's shoes, and then think about and feel what I think he would have felt. Is this what, I don't know, because it's all new to me. It's like, how old were you when you da 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 da? I was 43 years old. Just started this week. Like, I don't know what people do. And I don't really care. Like, I'm not looking to hang my reading experience on what readers generally do. I'm past that point, right? Like I'm almost at midlife. I don't need to hang my hat on that hook. It's just cool to wonder though, what do people do? Like, is this what I'm describing? Is that what a typical reader would do? That question is cool, but I don't need the answer because I'm going to just keep going with what's going to carry me through this book. Because a fear that I have is I'll get halfway through and I'll be like, yeah, I'm done. It's not doing it for me anymore. I hope that doesn't happen. I think I will push through just because of the fact that I'm part of a book club and I would like to talk about this book. But it's really fascinating so far. But yeah, I found myself getting into bed, turning on the side light, and reading a book, which is like foreign 100% in general for me. So yeah, we started a book club. It's been really cool so far. I'm digging the guys in the group. I really am. And a big thumbs up to these guys for taking a risk because people are shy. People are careful, and I don't have an issue with any of that. I think it's cool that they said, "Hey, I'll give this a shot." And then we're next thing you know, we're in a Google Meet and we're kind of meeting each other, talking. Um, I'm also excited. I'm excited about people speaking their truth about the text and about themselves. Um, I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to it.
My I think what's cool is what like I love your revelations. I love that that the questions that you're asking. Um, uh, I think for to spend time. I think what happens to me, and I don't know if it's my it could be my adult brain, and this is where I love what you said, like trying to be there, empathize, could be empathize, sympathize, both of them with the protagonist, and be in the story with the protagonist. I think I texted you um, last week sometime when I started to check the book out, and I said this book has teeth, and that was in as much of a reflection on the strength of the book. Like there was something about the strength and power of the book. It was also a you've been warned kind of a thing, kind of a moment, but it also was a partially a like it bit me, and it actually it got me in a way that by staying close to the characters and close to the setting and close to the um, the vibe that the book is giving off. I can't take on this kid's life in it. I can't live that life. But I think that's a really interesting way to look at it. Can I be a friend and one of the characters in the room in the same space? And what's interesting, what that does is all of a sudden that contextualizes this story, which is taken place decades ago for the most part, and it sort of contemporizes it. It puts it, what would I do if, as a 13-year-old, witnessing this story happen to other 13-year-olds, or like, what would a kid like me think about seeing like these things going on right now? And there's a weird little bit of time travel that happens there because we can't divest of our experiences. I read it as a dad, I read it obviously as a teacher, I read it as a man, I read it as a student. Like there's so many different lenses that it kind of flows through. um, I think what I'm checking as I read it emotionally, where's it hitting me, and then spending some time there. And for the most part, I was able to walk away. There's reasons, and there's reasons with this story, that we can say it, right? Like the Nickel Boys. The Nickel Boys is the story that we're talking about. Colson Whitehead. There's reasons in the book that distance me from some of the experiences. What happens in the book automatically I feel repelled by. I just get pushed away from it. Then there's other things that draw me back in again. There's reasons in the book why I don't feel great about experiencing the book as a father, as a man, as an adult, as a teacher. I don't like seeing it, because then the way that I'm connected to it, and the way that I'm connected to the story through that lens, is not a great feeling at all. There's moments in the book where if I connect to it as a 13-year-old or as a kid, I think to myself, yeah, like I would totally, like that's what I would do. Despite the fact that there's a whole lot of dark in the book, some of the joy moments in there, I'm really enjoying seeing it as a 13-year-old kid. Like I feel like, yeah, I would want to do that. I would want to play that. Now again, this is early in the book. Being honest in my reaction to the book, I'm finding, is one little island to be on. Being able to share, or even to articulate what I'm honestly feeling, is like the next layer. And the final layer, which I guess we'll see once we get with everybody, recognizing what I'm feeling, being able to say the words, like put words to what I'm feeling and thinking, and then actually being able to step up and speak to what I'm thinking. We'll see how that plays out in the group. If I just end up kind of listening a little bit more. I don't know. I think all of it will be honest. I think all of it is valuable. You mentioned in the group, if you're just going to sit and kind of listen, that's cool too. This is, I think, at the heart, last thing I'll drop into this. I had a moment where I thought to myself, oh yeah, I should totally like think about some guiding questions here. And then I almost instantly thought to myself, no, because that's exactly what you just do. I kind of thought, no, that's what a teacher would do. We're gonna bind ourselves to these questions, which inevitably will exclude some. They might include some, but it could also dilute the conversation. So I'm curious, when we come to the first meeting, how might we welcome people into that conversation? Like, what is the method to sort of, I mean, it can be as simple as, what do you think? Inevitably, people are going to drop in and drop stuff, right?
For sure. And like I looked for like, I think I've mentioned this before, maybe not here, but my wife is like, you're running a book club? How could you run a book club? Like, because I don't know what a book club is. To me, this is all happening somewhat organically.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I found some questions we could talk about, but based on our first meetings, I don't think we need questions. I think we're just going to jump in and talk. And wherever it takes us is wherever it takes us. And some people might not like that, and some people might love that. And all that is good, right? All of that is good. People who want to talk will talk, and people who don't want to talk won't talk. And to me, it's like this whole experience, when I say it's experimental, for me it is. It's something I've never done. I'm trying it out, and I'm seriously, I have no motive. Like, the only thing that's motivating me is a selfish one that is allowing me to understand myself better as a reader, post high school, post university, post past experiences. Really, that's what this is for me. But what I saw from meeting with the guys is that it is so cool what it is for them. And so for me now, I've got that rolling around in my head, that it's not just my selfish It's not just my selfish need or want. It's now it involves other people and what they look forward to, what they want. And I do, as the person who kind of kickstarted this, I do want to honor that as best as I can, because part of this, this journey going with other people, I believe involves considering them. And so that's really cool too. That's like another layer, right? The other layer is, hey, there's other people here. And I kind of want to prove to them as best I can that I am open to what's going to come. And that's the power of it. Like, that's what I'm feeling the power of it is right now. And, you know, the other cool thing I've been thinking about is how this would be different if it was happening in real life. And if it was happening in real life, I don't think it would be happening with the same richness, because we wouldn't have the same people involved. Like, I wouldn't expect you to be driving up to my neck of the woods every week, driving for almost 2 hours to hang out for an hour or two, and then driving home for 2. Like, well, we've got a guy in Belgium. We've got a guy in British Columbia. Mm-hmm. Like, that's pretty sick, man. Like, I'm loving that. I love that. That we're international. I'm going to use that word here.
That's awesome.
I know you're jiving with that because it means
something else. I got it.
You got it. I know you did. But we're international, but we're also like, we've got somebody on one end of our country. It's pretty cool. So yeah, I just wanted to drop that in there. I thought it was worth talking about here on our podcast about what we've kind of jumped into and what we're doing with that. It's kind of cool. And you know what? I wasn't going to talk about this, but now I want to talk about it. So I'm going to drop it and see what happens to it. When we started talking this morning, I was telling you about the conflict I'm having that I'm very aware of, which is awesome, because anybody who knows me really well, my wife, hint, hint, will tell you, I don't even know how to say it. I'm conflicted right now. She'll tell you that when I'm not aware of my feelings, it goes bad fast. Like, I spiral into a way of being that's just not good for people around me. Like, I'm not fun to be around. I'm negative. I'm irritated, and it upsets other people. But when I'm aware, I can take myself out of my emotions and just look down at little Roland and kind of work with little Roland to help him move forward in a better way. And so this morning when we started talking, I was telling you about my conflict that I'm aware of. I find myself during this pandemic being really excited and like full of energy about the amazing things that are happening with the teachers I know and myself in this whole emergency learning context. Really excited, really proud. Just like feeling full of energy about it. But then there's the other side of that. The side where I'm really upset with what's happening right now. Really upset with the perspective of what teachers are doing, what they should be doing, what they can be doing, what they shouldn't be doing. And I find that I'm going between these two extremes, and they're bumping into each other, and I'm doing my best to honor what I'm feeling at the particular moment, and then deciding to put it down and move on. And so with the excitement, it's like, this is awesome. I just found this really cool tool. I'm going to pass it on to some of my colleagues, or I'll read a tweet from someone, and I'm like, that's wicked that this person has this perspective, and how can I incorporate that more into my work? And I put it down, I walk away, and then I'm stuck with, I'll see what our Minister of Education is saying. Check in with some people, find out that what he's saying isn't really happening, which really upsets me, because he's lying just outright, or spinning his perspective into a world and reality that I live in where I'm not seeing anything that he's talking about. And then, like it's Saturday, but that doesn't mean I don't do any work. Even though everybody's like, well, it's Saturday, you should not be working. It's your day off. I have to plan for the coming week because my planning has become 100 times more onerous than it was when I was in the classroom, because nothing is as straightforward as it was in the classroom. All the nuances of the classroom don't exist online. And if they do, I haven't figured out how to make them work yet. I haven't figured out how to see them, how to do them. I was telling you about some of the struggles I've had this week with some of my students. So I go from that like negativity and feeling really bothered to positivity where I'm feeling really energized. And I'm not going to dismiss that I'm experiencing either one of those extremes. I'm not going to dismiss it. I'm not going to put it aside and pretend like it's not happening. It's happening. The positive's happening and the negative's happening. But my hope, my awareness of it happening is that what can I take from both of those, like those extreme emotions I feel daily? It's not even like it happens every single day. Every single day. What can I take from those experiences that are going to make me a better person, a better teacher moving forward? Because I don't want to devolve. I want to evolve. I want to keep growing, but I'm not going to deny that conflict that I'm experiencing. If I'm experiencing it, other people are experiencing it. And I feel like I really need to hold on to it and own it. And when I do that, then my ultimate goal of becoming better will grow because of that ownership. So I just felt like our conversation this morning has brought me to a place where I can publicly talk about that. And it depends when you catch me, right? Like I had a conversation the other day and I was caught in the conversation in a really positive vibe. And so I was focused on the positives of what's happening with respect to education right now. Then this morning, you caught me with the negatives. And I even told you, like, I bounced out of bed this morning, the sun was shining. I was like, this is awesome. I'm going to do my podcast today. Going to chat with Clough. Going to do some other stuff around the house. I was even like kind of excited about some of the research I was going to do for like the work that I'm going to get my students to do this coming week. And then we started the cast and I wasn't feeling so hot anymore. Now I'm feeling like I'm good with both sides. I'm good with the black. I'm good with the white. I'm kind of holding on to both. And I've removed myself from being in the middle of it to like being above it, looking down at it, and to try to help little Roland reconcile those two extremes and move forward. Are you getting any of that? Like, are you feeling any, like, do you feel any, one minute you're like, wow, this really sucks. And I can't believe this is happening. Not the pandemic, but things within the pandemic. And then other minutes you're like, this is amazing. Like, can I give you an example? You sent me one of your quick YouTube tutorials that you made for your students, and I was blown away. I'm like, this is friggin' awesome. This is the positive coming from this. You've created something that can help your students immediately, but yet can be archived for later use. Even watching it myself, I was learning. I'm not even a student in your class, but I was like, this is solid knowledge that Chris is dropping on me. It's good for me to have. Like, are you feeling those two extremes, or is that just kind of a Roland thing?
I am feeling the extremes. I am feeling it's not as staccato as I think as I'm interpreting you're saying. Like it's not like Flash. I'm sort of like on the dark side. Flash, I'm kind of on the light side. I'm skating. So I'm skating back and forth. Originally it would have been like speed skating, just kind of like back and forth across the pond. I think I'm now kind of more walking, a little bit slower. What's where my brain is going, and it's kind of, this is a mindset that's kind of been, I think it's been kind of, I've been steeping in this and didn't really have a way to articulate it. I told you this morning. This morning was a good walk for me. There was a lot of. It wasn't a good walk just because I felt good about the walk. Felt about good getting out in the fresh air and moving. It was a good walk because I felt like I finally got a few kind of like, the popcorn kernels that get stuck in your teeth, and you're just like so relieved when you finally get it out of the gum line. Like I feel like that's what this morning was a little bit like. Like I got a few things out of the gum line, and one of the thoughts that has really been one of the ideas and thoughts that I've been sitting in for the last 2 weeks, which I originally thought was a task I had to complete, but I think now it shifted into just a feeling I have to accept, is that there's two parts to it. One, that everything that I'm doing right now to define or do meaning making of our current context, I need to stop a little bit. I need to stop trying to pin it down and identify it and crystallize it and make it into something that at some point I would brag about understanding. Like I'm trying to take that pressure off me. And in doing so, without having to sort of do any meaning making of what's going on right now, I'm moving more in towards the ambiguity of it, which isn't necessarily comfortable, but I think I need to take the pressure off myself of feeling like I have to explain, I have to provide more news clippings, I have to be able to kind of give updates to what's currently going on. Now, I'm kind of tapping into a little bit some of the conversations I'm having with parents and students. Are we going to be back in the school? Are we going to have to wear gowns? Like, what's that going to look like? And I've said I don't know a bunch of times, but I think I'm going to flip more into I can't speak to that. Like I just can't. I'm gonna have to just accept my as is placement in all of this. That I too am going through lack of information. I too am going through emotional ups and downs. I too am going through like kind of getting wagged by other people's emotional states. Like that is my present. That is exactly where I am right now. And I think the discomfort is pushing me into this space of trying to get a deeper understanding of it that I just won't have. I just won't have. I'm not going to be able to get any closer to understanding of what is going on right now. The second part to it is that by working so hard to try and clarify whether it's my pedagogy or my assignments or all the steps, like what looks like work right now, a big part of it feels like me trying to get people to comply. And I think that compliance factor is messing with my head because it's creating some sort of barometer of success that I don't think I'm ever going to be able to do anything with. What is the value to really having the checklist that you've checked in? And I'm not saying this isn't necessary. I'm just saying this is where I'm kind of caught in this thinking. If I meet with 10 kids in the week and spend some one-to-one time helping them with assignments, I'm cautious of what that actually means in our current context. Assessment and evaluation policies are slowly creeping in as kind of like the defining tool for us to know whether or not we're being successful in this sort of time of distance learning. And I'm not entirely comfortable with that because that's not my reality. My reality is like, making that video or making the videos that I have for my community classroom is because I've spent an hour or so talking to a family, and right now I did another one about cracking eggs. I did another one about folding towels. So these are the things that right now a family is saying, this is what I need. And I'm fortunate in that there's a direct application to life in what I'm sort of showing them, like an immediate. It's not learn your multiplication tables right now, and yes, there's value in knowing that multiplication tables, but these are kind of like vitamins. Eventually it's going to make you stronger for something else. For some of my students right now, it is really important that they can fold a towel. So the sort of other side to this that's been rattling me around is that there is no way, it's going to be a long time before I'm able to fully appreciate, understand, appreciate, and do anything with the learning that I'm doing right now. There is no way. There's just no way. It's not going to be this summer where I'm going to look back on my tweets and, you know, the pieces I'm posting and say, oh yeah, that's what this moment meant. Or even a year from now, I can't hold myself accountable to sort of looking back on the content that I produced during this time and say, yeah, that was entirely appropriate and responsive. Like, I'm not going to bind myself to that expectation that I should have any clear understanding of what's going on than what I do when I wake up in the morning. My alarm goes off at 5 o'clock. I get up and I start my day. There's this weird kind of middle ground that I just have to be comfortable in. And I told you this past week, something funny happened. Like I forgot a little bit about what some people are kind of talking about as a past life. Like I forgot about what it meant, what my old routine was, getting up and driving into the building each day. I woke up this past week on more than one occasion and I went about my routine, you know, went through all the steps of feeding and reading and getting ready, and then I checked in with family. I started my day, my family started their day, had lunch at a certain time, finished the day at a sort of certain time, and then had dinner with the family. It was a very unnervingly natural feel to the day. For better, for worse, this isn't me avoiding or forgetting what school is and what work is. But there's a strange space that I'm in where maybe this was just me entirely being more present this week. And we could easily dovetail right into a conversation, but it's so, because this is the stuff that's happening in some socials, but there would be that, but it's so important for us to pay attention to what's going on right now so we don't repeat. Like there's a lot of opportunism right now on socials that we need to really pay attention to what's going on right now, so either we don't repeat the mistakes of the past, or this is an opening up point for education where we can kind of redo things. I don't disagree with all that. I guess I'm wondering whether or not I really want to be a part of those conversations. I don't know if I do. It's just weird thinking this week. Weird thinking this week for me.
I'm seeing tweets about this one particular tweet about, if we're going back, are we doing this social distancing in the building? And if we don't go back, are we extending the school year into the summer? And, this guy's listed like 3 other options, and I look at it and I just keep moving on. I'm like, I want this thing to end now. So like if you tell me I'm teaching into July, I have a feeling you're going to see negative Roland appear really quick. Today's Saturday, and I'm happy that I don't need to physically post anything for anybody to do. And this guy's talking about school going into July. Like, it's stuff like that. I just shake my head. I mean, mind you, I haven't taken the time to consider it, right? Or to look at the reasoning behind it. But it's like, I'm sure some people are in favor of it. I don't know who those people are because I'm not running into them. I'm running into the people who are like, this stinks. We're doing it, but it stinks. It's not ideal. I don't have time to sit with my kid all day and do this lesson 3 times. You know what I'm saying? So we'll see how it plays out. I'm waiting like everybody else to hear what our Minister of Education has to say this week. What's your take on this business of like, hey, on Tuesday, I'm going to tell everybody something. Wait until then. What's your take on that? Like, if he knows what he wants to tell us, why doesn't he just come out and tell us? What's he waiting until Tuesday for?
I think there's I think there's an element of marketing to it. I think that there's a marketing as in positioning yourself as some sort of a source of good information. I think it's set up in such a way that there's a suggestion like they're still kind of working on it, but we're going to release it as soon as the thing is ready. Like we're still doing our research, we're still consulting with specialists. I think that there's also uh, like helping a helping a country, sorry, a province to self-regulate, as in by setting it off in slightly in the future, you know you're going to get kind of like a scheduled response. I mean, that's what, Trudeau has done something similar. Trump is doing something similar, as in, you're going to be getting sort of like a voice of some information on a scheduled day. Um, I think it's also a way to get people just to pay attention to. I think it's an ego thing, that by baiting people into the next meeting, you always have them living in the future. They're never actually present. So they're living in the future. So, okay, on Tuesday, we're going to find something else. And then they can sort of like schedule the next thing. Okay, the next Wednesday. So you'll have people just um, scheduling their day ahead of time, scheduling their time so they're available to see it. If they were just to drop the information on the daily, there could be people that wouldn't witness it. They could be buried in work, buried in other things, so they're not going to get all the eyeballs that they need. Um, there's the accountability that they're doing work. So, I am going to be in front of you on Tuesday. I'm doing my job. There's a lot of little things going on. Now, the getting more information faster is, well, the previous presser is a good example of ridiculous, useless information. Nobody, as it turns out, needed to know that 21,000 Apple products were being deployed, because as it's actually been kind of connected afterwards, that there was nothing that the government did. Like they didn't actually do anything. They were talking about stuff that was already in the system and stuff that was already deployed by the system. So we had students kind of asking, when am I going to get my iPad? And there's no iPads coming. Like there's nothing actually coming. So everyone's kind of calling him out as a liar, which is fine. You do what you got to do to sort of like get your piece said. But I just think that it, on one hand, I want information. Second hand, I'm not depending on any politician to firmly root my understanding of what's going on right now. I'm going to seek my own sources, and I'm going to appreciate my own sort of like process. I include my own process in understanding what's going on right now. I won't hang it on Lecce. I won't hang it on Trump or even Trudeau as my sole source of information what's going on right now. And on a big hand, it doesn't really bother me. Like I don't have any. If they're going to say Tuesday, okay, Tuesday. I don't think it would change. Is part of it. I mean, one of the only thing that I have no control. I have zero control over whether or not I'm going to be okay. The space that I actually have control over anything in this sort of COVID space is just between my family. That's it. That's it. Kind of how we work together in this house. That is the only where I get a vote. I actually get a vote, and I can sort of create influence. If we decide to do it completely democratically and my whole family is trying to make a decision and we all sort of vote in or vote out, that is the only space that I have. Anything else, anything else is entirely going to be decided by other powers. Whether or not I go back to work, that's decided by somebody else. Whether or not I have to assess in a certain way, that's going to be decided by somebody else. Whether or not school is going to open in September, that's going to be decided by somebody else. So I kind of backtrack that to I have zero play in affecting the next change that's going to impact me. I just have to receive it well and figure out my resources to deliver on it if it has to do with work, and then bring it back to my family and figure out how that's going to either positively or negatively impact me. There's zero I can do to enforce like any kind of wish about when and how this information is going to be delivered to me, and releasing the control of that is only slightly easier than admitting I need to let go of that. But it's a mind game. It's a mind game. Well, I'm fortunate that I think we're fortunate. I'll throw on it. We're fortunate that we're getting our information from Ford, Lecce, and Justin Trudeau. I would not want to have to deal with the American political system right now in this. We're fortunate that we have some measured, reasonable responses. And again, it's not me saying that I'm entirely going to use the politicians as my single source, never. But at least as single sources, they bounce so much truer than what's happening in the States. So much truer.
Well, I appreciate your perspective. Thanks for throwing it down.
You're welcome, man.
I think it's that time where we get to check out what you've been drawing.
Are we done? We gonna drop out?
Unless you have other pressing things you want to discuss.
I don't know. Yeah, I think I'm good. It feels kind of natural, eh? We did an hour and change, 70 minutes.
I feel like we hit some stuff, light, heavy. But like I said, I'm good to keep going. If you've got, I'm tapped out in terms of like stuff that is coming out of here right now. Mm-hmm. So what? Yeah, I'm open to what you got.
No, I think we got there. I'm hungry too. I want to go have something to eat, I think.
That's not a bad idea.
No, it's not a bad idea. Yeah, it's we'll see.
Oh, the air is leaving the balloon. Interesting. Week 6.
That's kind of where we are, depending on how you do the calculation, right?
Very interesting. Yeah, depending on how I'm calculating from the minute that I found out I wasn't going back to work.
So that's kind of the Thursday, Friday-ish frame before we left, right? So yeah, if you do, I think it still kind of puts us in about that same frame. Like by tomorrow, Monday, that's the end of week 6 that we've been away from, like
from normal,
away from the building. Yeah. Yep. So
it's a long time.
It is, dude. And again, for me, it's going to be about, I don't know. I'm not going to try and be clever at all about saying, oh, this time has been so fruitful. I've learned so much. No, I think it's just, the water line is too high. You got to wait till it kind of falls a little bit. Just as an example, like so connected to that, walking with the kids, the walk that I often take in Newmarket is along a trail that has remained open. It's a city trail. And the other day I had the kids out and we were looking at, so if you look at the, so if these are the 2 highest banks on the river and there's on either side of the river, there's pathways you can walk on, then it kind of cuts down and then there's sort of a lower bank and then it cuts down again and the river is there. And the river right now is quite low. So in that first tier down, my kids were looking at, they're like, hey, can we go down there? I'm like, yeah, sure. And they're standing in the middle of it. They're looking around and they're like, what's up with this? And everywhere the grass is all kind of like bent and broken and flat. And they're asking like, why is it like that? Like, what's going on? Like what, because they're thinking like some truck came through and kind of ran it, like a thresher ran it over. And so I drew their attention. I said to Madeline, I'm like, hey, check out that tree. And on that top tier, so on the top tier where the path is, there's a tree standing and the branches are hanging over and some of the branches kind of go down very close to that second tier down before the river. And all over the branches there's like it's best as I can say, like there's garbage. So there's garbage and there's like straw and plastic bags and it's all wrapped around it. And I say, check out the tree over there. Like what's going on over there? And the kids are standing there and they're like, how would that get there? They said they're nests. Those are nests. I'm like, check it a little bit closer. And they're going up, they're like, that's a milk bag. Like, and then they're looking at it just dense. Like it looks like just a dense knot of debris around the trees. And I'm like, how could that, where would that have come from? So my son's like, oh, it blew in there. It's sort of like the wind blew it and wrapped it around, and I'm like, okay, possibly. Then my daughter started to put it together. She's looking at the grass that's flattened, and she's looking at that, and she kind of looks down on the river, and she can see there's crap floating by in the river. She said, "Did the water make it up here before? Like, did the water actually rise and sort of go across the grass?" I'm like, "Yeah, that's where the river rises to." And you don't actually see what's going on underneath the river. You have to wait. Right now we're getting that low water season where the river is kind of like its natural size. I said, but sometimes it swells right up, and it's just like squashing and eroding everything that's on that lower riverbank. And then that's when she looks up at the tree, and she's like, and it gets that high. She said, so now she understands that the tree branch reaching down into the water as the river's going by, it's getting caught on the branch. The water recedes, and you have these weird kind of constructions hanging from the trees. That example reminds me a lot of where we are right now, because the water line is so high, we're not actually sure what's being caught and trampled underneath. And when the water comes back down, who knows how long that's going to take? We're going to see what kind of got flattened. We're going to see what the erosion looked like. We're going to see what, like, as example, the trees were kind of grabbing, like what was the stuff that got plucked out of that water line. But it kind of freaked my kids out. It freaked my kids out that the water could be that high. But like the boiled frog, boiled frog example? You heard that before? So the boiled frog is like, if you have boiling water, if you want to cook a frog, don't boil the water. Actually, I'm kind of making up this example. I'm explaining as I go, but the example is kind of like, if you were deciding to eat a frog, don't throw the frog in boiling water, because there's a good chance it's going to jump out. It's just going to freak and bounce and jump out. However, if you put the frog in cold water and just slowly, over small increments of time, turn up the water till eventually where it is boiling, you're going to have a cooked frog. Delicious, I'm sure. But that's a little bit like where we're in right now. We're kind of in that whole temperature has been raised so kind of, well, it was immediate, but kind of slow still, because we had March break, and then we had the week afterwards. And then it was in that week afterwards where they said, okay, now we got to flip to something. So a little bit of that boiled frog factor, it got raised. And right now the water's boiling. We won't know until it kind of comes down again what the impact was, and the little pieces that we want to take behind, like what actually is the remnants of this effect. The river. An example by Chris Clough. With boiled frogs.
You've never cooked frogs before?
I've had frog legs, but they're fried.
Okay.
Yeah, I have had frog legs. They are delicious.
Do people actually cook frog?
Like just on its own? Like
yeah.
What are we going to eat? I imagine. I don't think it's an actual boilable food, though. I don't know the history of that example. I'd have to sort of look it up. But boiled frogs might be a delicacy somewhere.
Gotcha.
Probably won't look into it. I'm happy enough knowing that example exists somewhere on the interweb. People can look it up. And the fact that I've had, what's kind of freaky about frog legs, I will say, if you do order them in a restaurant, often they do come like the full, like the ones that I've seen. It's not just like, you can get it just like the one leg, battered, breaded, fried. But I've been in places too where it's both legs. Now you get one frog leg and you're kind of looking at it, it doesn't really look like a frog leg. It just looks like a weird skinny kind of chicken leggy kind of thing. But when you have the two kind of attached at the hip, you're like, that looks like the lower quarter of a frog. It kind of changes your perspective. You never had frog legs, obviously, no?
No.
You get the chance. I think you'd like them. I think you'd like them. You kind of get around the mindset of eating a frog. Maybe you have no issues with eating a frog. I don't know.
Right now, as I think about it, I feel like I've got issues. Yeah. But who knows? It's all contextual too, right? Like when you and I do our foodie thing, I'm willing to try new stuff. I'm willing to take those risks. But when I'm with the family, not so much. Depends.
I've talked to the kids about that. They were looking at again on this walk. There are a lot of snails and like the snail shells kind of left behind. I'm imagining that birds have come and like pick them out and just leave the shells behind. the kids asked, they said, are these the same, Maddie asked, like, are these the same snails like people eating snails? So I actually don't know. I do know that there are people that will go out into their gardens and get snails and cook those. Like there are places in the world where that's how they're farming their own snails. So my kids are pretty adventurous, but I could see my daughter sort of considering it. She's looking at the shell and she's like, would I eat this? Like, is this something that I would eat? So
Interesting.
yep. All right. I didn't think I had anything else to mention, but there's a little silly thing.
It's all good.
Frog legs. Frog legs and riverbank.
That was season 3, episode 28. Thanks, Chris.
You're welcome, man. Chat you soon.